Okay, here we are again, and I have another car stereo. This one I purchased. It was parts for repair. It's actually in really good condition. I actually got some smudges on the screen. Oops. This one I checked it out. It has no audio. Everything else seems to work good. I can show you right here. I'll go ahead and put some power to it. But first, check out our sponsor, PCBWay.com. They offer various types of PC boards, including aluminum PC boards, metal core, flexible, high frequency, LED, and lots of different PCB products. They also offer CNC, 3D printing, and even CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, 3D printing, and injection molding. They even offer prototype PCB assembly. So the next time you have an electronics project, check out PCBWay.com. And it comes up here. I'll let it go ahead and connect to my phone. I've already paired it through the Bluetooth. And there it goes. And as you can see, I've got the speakers hooked up to, there's no audio whatsoever. But I have tested the preamp section, which is working because I can take my RCA cables and connect to the back here. And let's go turn this down some. And I'll flip it over to the amplifier. And we have sound. And everything else functions properly. Let's see, better turn that off before I get a copyright strike there. We can take a few measurements to make sure that the IC is getting power. If it is, and it's not in mute or anything like that, then we'll go ahead and replace that chip. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and power this down. And turn that off. And we're going to take the main circuit board out of this so we can get a better look at that chip. And these radios, they're actually pretty easy to work on. This is just about all the Sony models are very similar to these. And so what you do is just pop that USB out. We're going to take that out here. Be really careful with this flex cable. Basically, if you just pull up on the edges of the connector, and we can pop that straight out like that. This is the Wi-Fi antenna. These are actually pretty easy. You just pull slight pressure here, and it just pops right out. And so we're going to go ahead and take the circuit board out here. Actually, I don't need to take these screws out yet. That's just when we get the got to take the heat sink off. So at this point, we can actually just lift this whole board straight out like that. And what we're going to do is look at these pins here. Now, I do have a pinout for this IC that I found. I just googled the number of the chip, which I don't know if you can see it there, but it's TCB501HQ. And this is the audio IC right here. This one is actually a power regulator IC, so if this one was bad, then nothing would work. But this here is your audio output IC. And so we're going to go ahead and see, this is going to be pin 1 over here. So we got, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And I think the easiest way to test this is if I turn this upside down. Set that aside for now. This way I can actually reconnect. I don't know if you can see that on camera. I'm going to reconnect the ribbon like that, and what we're going to do is spin this around like this, and I'm going to hook it back up, and I'm going to get my meter so that we can take a look at this. Okay, I have my meter here now, and I'm going to go ahead and supply power back to the radio. Let's see, need to try to get this in here. Make sure I can get all this in frame. And make sure we're not touching anything here. This is actually a reverse end wire. And we've got our parking brake wire over here. Anyway. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put power back to this thing. And the USB connectors don't need to be hooked up. They are just pass-throughs that go out to the back. So if those cables are not actually plugged up here, that's fine. And okay, we got power there. And we're going to start up here. This is going to be pin 1, and then work back to pin 25. And according to the diagram here, looks like pin 25 is going to have the output power that will go to a remote turn on, like for an amplifier, something like that. So we do have 13 volts, so the power is getting into the chip, it's coming back out of the chip. So it looks like pin 20 is our main in. Looks like there's two different ones. So it'd be 20 here. Okay, so we do have 13 volts. That's our other input. Looks like we have one more input here, which is on pin 6. It's another supply voltage, so we have pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, that also has power. The only other thing that we could do is check to see if the mute is accidentally enabled somehow. And that would be on pin 22. So we have 25, 24, 23, 22. Yeah, this is 22. 3.3 volts is exactly what it should be when it's not muted. That pin is pulled low, meaning to ground or 0 volts, to actually mute the unit. When it's high, meaning 3.3 volts on that pin, it should be unmuted according to the schematic for the chip. So I have checked to see if there's audio coming to the chip, which it is, and the way that you can do that is actually track down the RCA outputs that go on the other side of the board. They will actually come across to this section here. They also split off to this chip, and I've already checked to see that the audio is getting to the inputs. So looks like we do have a defective chip. Alright, so what we're going to do is go ahead and remove this IC, and I'm just going to pop this cable back out here so I can have a little bit more room. I'll set that aside. Disconnect our wiring harness on the back. That way we can get to a little bit easier. And let me go ahead and warm up my desoldering tool. Alright, while that's warming up, I'm going to go ahead and remove the screws out of the back here. And we've got 1, 2, 3 here. We're going to have to remove this one for the RCAs, this one for the mic jack and the remote, and let's see, this one will actually stay on the plate because we can unplug that from the board. So do need to remove this one here. This is a connector for a external satellite radio. We're going to pop this whole heatsink off here. Go ahead and pop that USB cable off. I'm just going to set that aside so now we can get down to the chip itself. Now there is a bracket here that covers over the back of the ICs, and we'll probably remove it too. That'll make it easier to remove this because these type of chip, they have the leads that are actually, let me get a little bit closer so you can see it, that are bent over. One of my lights are off here. Let me turn that on. Yeah, that helps a little bit more. As you can see, those leads are bent over at a right angle, and if you try to pull this chip out without taking this off with that piece bent over, you don't want to bend that over because that's actually, it would be hard to get that line back up. So we'll just unsolder that bracket. And if you don't have any solder wick or anything, you know, it's great to use the desoldering tool. But if you don't have this, then you can use solder braid or a solder sucker or anything that would make it easy to get that off. Sometimes these big pieces can be quite hard to get off. Sometimes you can actually just put a little bit of pressure on the piece that you're trying to remove while you're applying heat, which sometimes is easier said than done. There we go, that one there. Okay. That actually did pretty good there. Alright, we'll just pop that right out, set that aside, and then we're just going to unsolder all these wires. And again, if you don't have a desoldering tool like this, you can use solder braid. Should work pretty good. This is a double layer board, which makes it a little bit easier to do that way, but with the old chip, actually, you could, if you want to, just cut it off, and then it would be easier to unsolder all those leads if you don't have a desoldering tool, because that way you could use the solder braid and pull them out and clean up the holes, and then when you go to put the new one in, of course, it'd be easier. So but of course, if you are just desoldering the chip for some other reason, you wouldn't want to cut the leads off. But if it is bad, then there's no reason to not just cut them all off. Alright, that should have all those. Let's see if we can get that out. Oh, look at that. Came right out. And that is why I love that tool. I wish I had bought it many years before I did. Now this particular IC, I purchased it from AliExpress. I have since searched and I've noticed that there are some available on eBay. I just did AliExpress because it was cheaper and I didn't really mind waiting. Also, another thing too, see how you can't really see the numbers too good, and I may have said this in another one of my videos, but if you ever have a chip or a transistor when you can't really see the numbers very good on it, some of the heatsink compound, if you just spread that across the letters, it will actually get into the letters because they're etched in, and then that way you can read them better. It's just a little trick. Sometimes that can really be a help on some of these. So anyway, I have a brand new IC here in the little anti-static bag. I'm going to go ahead and install that and then reinstall the little backing plate there and heatsink and see how that goes. Alright, so we're going to pop this open here. And we'll go ahead and set that down in. It's like one of the leads has a slight bend to it, so we're going to take the tweezers and just straighten that up a little. There we go. And slide it right down in. And then we're going to solder it in there. Try to keep that somewhat straight. And what I'm going to do is grab some solder here. I'm actually just going to hold this chip straight, and I'm just going to put a little bit of solder on one lead here just to hold it, and then that way when I go to solder the rest of them, the chip will already be lined up, so I don't have to worry about it falling over. And I think I'm going to do this under the microscope so everybody can see it a little bit better. Alright, we're just going to start over here. Some of these outside leads are going to take a little bit more heat because these have bigger solder pads on them. And turn it up just a little. I'm going to go back over some of these and get some of the outer ones started first. Add a little bit of flux to this. You get some like this that don't want to take solder. It's a combination of not enough flux and can be that and not enough heat also. See how that one goes right down in there now. Like I said, this particular pad actually is absorbing a lot of the heat, so that's why I'm having some trouble with that one. And this is a multi-layer board, so it is drawing a good amount of solder through. Go back here and touch this one up. Actually gives it a strange look through the microscope, but it's mainly because of the angle that we're looking at it. these holes actually have a good amount of solder mask around them, which is kind of hard to see if you look at them at a different angle. Even one of those looks like it has no solder on it. It's kind of a strange thing here. You can see the ones I did where there's a small pattern around the outside in between the actual through hole, and then you have the green solder mask and then the white overlay, so it makes it look kind of strange. Whoops, if I get that back in frame there. And the trick is with something like this, you don't want to stay on any one lead for a very long time. It's actually best to do a cross pattern. Trying to keep my fingers out of the picture there. The flux also makes that look kind of strange. The light is reflecting off of them. We're going to clean that off with some alcohol. Probably be best to use an old toothbrush for this. The cotton swab is getting all stuck in there. But as you can see, once I get the flux out of there, the solder starts to look a lot different. I'm going to grab an old brush so I can get in between there and clean that up better. Alright, just got some alcohol in here and just going to clean that up. Alright, we're going to switch off of this and go back to the regular video. Alright, and as you can see under the regular camera, it looks a lot different when it's under the microscope. Anyway, we're going to make sure that's nice and straight and put a little bit of heatsink compound on there. I'm going to refresh this a little bit on this one here. And it's just like a processor for a computer. You don't want to go crazy, but you want to get enough to where it's nice and spread out. That's plenty. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put this little bracket back on. Alright, got that push back in there, so we're going to just resolder that mount back in. And this is something that'll take a good amount of heat as we're heating up that whole piece of metal. Luckily my iron does really well with these big pieces of metal. It recovers pretty good. Alright, so that's back in. Alright, go ahead and put this back in. And first I may want to put the heatsink back on the back. Might be able to get it in there after the fact, but it'd be a whole lot easier doing it while it's off. We're just going to put these back in, and my hand is completely in the way. In a lot of my videos I've been, in the past I've put music, or I would speed up when I'm putting in a lot of screws. And I've got kind of mixed comments about that. If you would, just down in the comments, tell me what you think about that. You know, do you like any kind of background music, or to have the video sped up when I'm putting in a whole bunch of screws, or do you want to watch me put in a bunch of screws? I've just kind of got some mixed feelings on it, and just curious what you guys think. I know with me, it kind of depends. If I'm watching a video and there's like a ton of screws in something, it's like I don't really care to watch somebody put that many screws in, but everybody's different, so I'm just kind of curious what everybody thinks about that. Alright, we've got those screws in. We got the ones for the RCA. Let's go ahead and put these back in here. I'm not sure. I think they just used all the same length screws. I'm not sure why some of these are so long for some of the things that they don't need to be long for. Just like these here. I keep getting out of frame. The screws are a lot longer than they need to be for these, but I guess they just probably use the same length for everything. That's what I'm guessing. Alright, so we're going to pop that USB back down into there, and this is just a little piece of wire that holds that down. Same with this here, holds this USB cable down. I'm going to pop this back in here, hold these up. And I do have a lot more videos planned. Have some tape deck repairs I'm going to be doing. Got some mini disc players, some old Sony Walkmans. Just, you know, put down in the comments what you'd like to see, and probably will have some of those things. Got a kind of a unique 5-cassette changer that's made by Sony that was actually featured on one of Techmoan's videos. I'm sure you've seen him. I'm going to be making a video of putting new belts in that. So just let me know what you think, what you want to see. And pop that cable back down in there. These little Wi-Fi cables, they go back on just like they come off. If you just kind of line them up over the... It's hard to see with my fingers in the way there. I'm going to get some tweezers so you can see it better. But if you just line it back up over that little spot there, and then just push down on that flat part, they pop right back in. Those are the same ones that you would see in, well, the lighting is terrible there, in laptops. And this is just the antenna here for the Bluetooth. So that's all back together. We don't really need the the lid back on it to test it. So let's go ahead and plug it back in and see what we've got now. There goes my cables flopping everywhere. Any of those touching. Got my speaker wires here. I'm just gonna put some power to it. And we've got the Sony logo. And I hear a beep, which is a good thing because the beep is actually, it's kind of hard to explain. You will not hear the beep if the output chip is not working. The output chip, the beep is actually injected into the audio that goes into the input of the IC here. The beep will not be heard if you're using an external amplifier. I'm not really sure why. I'm guessing because if you're amplifying that signal, it would be ridiculously loud in the car. And so it is actually before the section that's filtered out over here before it goes to the RCAs. So basically it's injected in the preamp before the RCAs, but it goes directly into the input of the chip. So that's a good sign. So let's, well, I can't play that because that is going to trigger some copyright content. So let me go back in my phone here. So we're going to turn that up. And the audio is working. So that is a good thing. And let's see here. If we go into home settings, where was I going in here? We have crossover settings. Let's go to balance and fader. So this goes to the right channel. It's hard to hear because of the way my box is to the left of where my phone is, camera, so you're not going to be able to hear the separation very well because both speakers are to the left of the camera. But it does fade left to right, and so that is working. Let's go back to Bluetooth and let's pull up something else. This music here. This is pretty quiet. It's mostly instrumental, royalty free. But it actually sounds very good. Kind of impressed with that. Well, that's about it for this video. I don't want to, it's already gone long enough, but if you have any questions or comments, just leave them below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I wanted to thank everybody that is getting me up to, I've got over 1,000 subscribers now, and that's just amazing. I never thought that this channel would get to that. But I just want to thank everybody for the views and the subscriptions. Like I said, a lot of videos planned. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.